stuck here. The cops won't bother me. So it's kind of funny seeing these roads pretty empty. This is 29 north towards Baltimore. You know, this is probably my favorite car, the Toyota Prius. It's not something that a lot of car guys would admit, but since I drive a lot and I just like to kind of get to locations and it's a lot of utility, this car is just absolutely perfect. It's so quiet, and of course this is from 2006 and I am still getting 50 to 60 miles to the gallon depending on how I drive. This is our exit, New York, Towson. Even though I live much closer to DC in Maryland, this is it's very close because of the pandemic. There's no traffic at all. And this is the first time I've been here in quite some time. The Prius is such a good car. You know, I keep telling people that the car that most people need to get to work and even travel and touring is the Prius. It just does so much. It does everything I want, and it's so reliable. That's another thing that I don't think people realize. When the Prius first came on the market, everybody was saying like, yeah, but it's so much more expensive than an EconoBox. But now we're starting to realize that these are so reliable, and you're seeing so many Prius from 2005 on the road, 2006. Essentially the second generation Prius, and they barely use brakes. You know, the battery lasts 300,000 miles or 10 years, and the prices of these batteries, one of the original worries was that it was going to cost a lot of money to fix, but now for $300-400 you can put a new refurbished battery pack in there and you have a almost perfect brand new Toyota Prius. And the gas engine on this is absolutely fantastic. There are no issues with the engine. It's not a fast engine, but I do enjoy driving it because it's very smooth, very quiet. And I think we're about to exit somewhere here. So we are exiting on Route 26. And you know, Baltimore is very interesting. It's one of the areas that's super cheap. And in a way, it's becoming gentrified, but yet you can get a house for, you know, $40,000 if you don't mind living in a area that's a little sketchy. But when you look around here, and you look at the houses and everything, you'll start to realize that, yeah, it is much more poor, but you don't see a lot of people talking too much about Baltimore. This is Route 26, and it comes off their major highway, 695, and it goes into the inner city. If we were to follow this, we would basically get dropped right in the inner harbor. You go from one block to the other, and it goes from like very wealthy to very, very poor, and it's just from block to block. And the reason for that is that it used to be a time not that long ago that black people were forced to live in separate sections, and part of that culture is still, you know, alive in Baltimore. Even in DC, it's been black people were not allowed to buy property outside of certain areas. It's kind of strange because I think it was pretty recently. We like to think that this is something that is from hundreds of years ago, but no, that's a very strange thing that that happened. So this is Seton Park. You have some amazing architecture here, and you know that usually signifies the wealth that Baltimore once had. There was a lot of money in here. So Baltimore is also known. Look at that old house over there. Jeez, it's like it's a church, but it looks awesome. Baltimore is also known for really crappy roads. Actually, it's even worse than DC. So this would be a poorer area here in Baltimore. This car does not like these hills, these bumps. But they're sections of row homes, but they're very old. Like, you can tell that people here don't have a lot of money, which is okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. I live in a very poor area. But that guy just, when their light is still red, they'll time it, so they'll start moving, and then midway it becomes green. Such a stupid thing to do, because, you know, that's how you get into accidents, you know? It seems like a silly thing to time. The houses, they're so cute. I really like these. There is some sort of a building that's being worked on here. They're taking care of their houses here a lot better than down there. See, this is what I tell you about Baltimore. Look at that house. Ooh. From one block to the other, look at this house. This is like a mansion. That's what Baltimore is all about. It's just like these weird segregated like blocks that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I come to Baltimore very much, but this area is very cute. Another speed camera. Jesus, there's so many speed cameras. That is incredible. And as we move, I bet, like, as we move down in elevation, I bet there's going to be more poorer areas. Yep, look at this. Just crazy how different Baltimore becomes. And the speed camera just took like a shot of this guy that was coming. Real estate here. Look at this massive church. Look how awesome that is. Yeah, normally I'm not into churches, but Baltimore's got some pretty fantastic looking ones. Nice Honda over here. What is wrong with it? Another motorcycle. Looks like somebody's into motorcycles here. Look how tight these roads are. It's like very DC-like. To just drive around and like scoot around on my motorcycle around these like residential zones and seeing where people live and stuff. Look at that house. That's a massive house. The downside of living in Baltimore is that you have to pay the taxes of Baltimore. It's not cheap. The taxes are pretty expensive because there's not a lot of businesses here. Only in Baltimore you have a car bumper as part of the sign. I mean, that I don't think that really belongs, but it's kind of interesting that they have a car bumper that's kind of trashed out in front of the sign, where so many bumpers. This particular area is just full of like car parts on the side of the road. Baltimore looks like Baltimore is a fairly large city as well, so you get a lot of this style of house, like small row homes. There's a lot of construction. I like that people are fixing things up. Well guys, that's pretty much what Baltimore is. It's sometimes I go there. It's not too often because, you know, I'm so much more closer to DC than I am to Baltimore that I don't know much about Baltimore, but I do appreciate a lot of the architecture and the old houses that they do have there. And it's kind of nice. It's very different than DC, and at the same time it's similar because it's a city. But of course, if you're thinking about buying a house in Baltimore, I do encourage you to buy a house in Baltimore, but just know that there is a higher crime rate there than a lot of cities. I think even in the entire United States, I think that's one of the cities that's got the most highest violent crime. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind when you're buying a house there. There are a lot of people that, you know, buy houses in Baltimore and commute to DC. I don't recommend that. If you're going to be working in DC, you have a job for the federal government like a lot of people do, I would recommend you live in a place that's a little bit more accessible with more roads. Because this particular road that we're on now, it's I-95 and then there's Route 70. Pre-coronavirus, this was packed full of traffic. I mean, this is like a huge artery of traffic And people just, there's bumper to bumper traffic in this 4-lane road every single day pre-coronavirus. So now you're seeing me like drive without any issues, but that's not normal.